The electric vehicle market has seen substantial growth over the past 10 years. Presently, many companies are rushing to provide solutions for this flourishing industry. One of these companies is XCelerate. XCelerate offers leasing and financing options for customers looking to purchase battery electric vehicles. Milad Davoodi, Chief Operating Officer at XCelerate, is intimately familiar with this industry. Eager to educate anyone willing to listen, Milad shared his expertise with the Bright Founders Talk podcast. Make sure to tune into this episode of the podcast for an overview of the fully electric automotive industry. Hi everyone, and welcome to Bright Founders Talk at TAMI. TAMI is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Our today's guest is Milad Davoodi, Chief Operating Officer at XCelerate. Hi Milad, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good too. Pleased to see you today. It's early morning from your side, am I right?
It is. Well, kind of early morning. It's only 9 a.m., so it's not too bad.
Okay, so it's only the beginning of your day. So what is the secret of staying productive during the holiday?
Staying productive during the holiday, I think, for me, I'm very task oriented, right? So making sure, over my course of the last, I say, over a decade of working, it's you always usually have a break between ideas and execution, right? And a lot of people always have a lot of great ideas, but how do you translate that to execution? It's very important to keep methodical tracking notes, create trackers, just a to-do list, and making sure that everything kind of stays focused. I start every day with a whole entire list of things that I start every week with an entire list of things that I need to get accomplished. So that's how I do it every day.
That's great. Now we know your success formula. You're a Chief Operating Officer at XCelerate. As I said earlier, I noticed your portfolio includes experience in Tesla. We can say that you've been in the industry for more than 10 years. It's quite a long period of time. So what significant changes did happen to the industry during this time?
Sure. Yeah. So I spent 7 years at Tesla and a couple of years at AWS as well after that. As far as well, speaking specific to the EV space in the industry, everything has changed, right? Whenever I started Tesla back in 2011. So when I started, it was education. It wasn't really sales. Most people, the vast majority of individuals, did not know that electric vehicles existed. They didn't even think that that was a possibility in their life. They never thought that they would ever see something like that. It was something so foreign that you change one aspect of the equation and everything changes, right? So we had to educate people. How does this work? How do you charge this stuff? What's our plan, right? And a lot of it was hopes and dreams in the early days, but we were very methodical about how we were able to execute on what our vision was. And we did, right? So how did that change over the years? We started seeing an increase of consumer confidence, but we also was able to see that a lot of, more people were getting into the vehicles. We started with the early adopter stage with the people who were kind of your first adopters. That really help any new company, new product succeed. And that started branching into people that buy more highline cars, more luxury vehicles that are a little more affluent. And then now we have more Model 3 and Y, which is not so much your normal drivers. The price tag is still twice as what an average price tag is in the United States, at least. But it's branching into that, so when I started, 0% of new vehicles that were being delivered were electric vehicles. Quite literally, in the United States. And then now, last year we were at 3%, and now a couple of years ago we were at 3%, and now I believe we're at about a 6% of all new vehicles. So, I would say that first 0 to 6% was complicated to achieve, but overall, we're starting to see an industry being created that is similar to that of your legacy world, right? Your legacy world has a lot of different ends, a lot of different variables. There's ancillary products, there's dealers, there's servicers, right? So there's all different types. of people that are involved with making the automotive industry a whole. And in my mind, we shouldn't recreate that, but we should really think about how does that differ when we're talking about this new type of vehicle technology. And that's how we run at Xcelerate is not just simply, and even in my years at Tesla and my team, what I used to tell my team is look at what every other manufacturer or deal or successful dealer, right? Any vehicle seller or maker, um, go and do what they are doing, but do it better. And then my job is I'm going to figure out what we can do that no one else in the world has ever been able to do, and execute on that, and make it work. And everyone has one idea to execute every 3 months. So once every 3 months, and he needs to create the idea and he needs to execute on that idea. And that's how fast we had to grow. So we're doing a lot of the same thing here. It's not much different. We're not simply recreating the same things that have been available for the rest of the world. We're really trying to rethink how this would look, right? So how do we rethink a leasing model or finance model for a vehicle that in theory could technically drive you, right? It could be a moneymaker for you. It could have more value than the cost of the actual car. Or looking at ancillary products in a new way because these are direct to consumer businesses, right? So you're not dealing with third-party servicers, and you're no longer dealing with a lot of traditional level of diagnostics and serviceability. How do we recreate financial products that allow for that type of servicing and vehicle technology? How do we get more intelligent, right? So if we're going to create products to cover batteries, as an example, are we going to look at it as in the way that we would look at the traditional world, or where we say we have X amount of cars, an X amount of fault ratio, and that's X amount of dollars to replace? Or if we're going to do this at the beginning where we don't have the data, what else do we look at? And we can let's look at the vehicle technology. Let's look at the battery technology itself. What differs with its battery technology? What are the trends with different types of battery technology? Is it the chemistry? Is it the cooling? Is it the BMS system? Is it the heat pump? Is it the environment that the battery is in? And once we're able to answer all of these questions, then what's the difference between a battery that's in a vehicle versus a battery that's on a wall of a house? And then you start thinking, well, there's not really a whole lot different when you start breaking it down to those types of core principles. So we as a whole need to start thinking about everything differently, not just because it's different, but because we want to make it better, right? We shouldn't be evolving in life and just doing the same thing over and over again. We got to be doing things different, especially as the products and the infrastructure and as society around us changes dynamically.
Could you please tell us more about what problem Xcelerate is trying to solve nowadays?
Sure. So Xcelerate started, as you mentioned, in 2014. Our founder and CEO, KJ Gimbel, this is actually someone that I used to work with pretty closely for many, many years, and obviously now. But how KJ started, it was he worked at actually it was a vehicle seller, right? As a dealer, but they had leasing and financing products that he built and managed for them. So one of the things that we needed help with at Tesla was we needed assistance with figuring out how to lease these cars out. Now, at the very beginning of Model S deliveries, we did not have a leasing program, and more importantly, or not more important, but for that suited a lot of other people, we didn't have a commercial leasing program either, right? So we were getting close to developing a leasing program, but we definitely did not have a commercial leasing program. So we had a lot of customers that needed this type of product. So KJ was actually the first person that, as a company, we actually reached out to help us facilitate this, especially in the states where we could not facilitate, such as Texas, which is the state that we're based, and that's where I started at Tesla. So he helped us a lot with being able to lease these vehicles out, and thus the birth of Xcelerate. So the birth of Xcelerate Auto was KJ Gimbel leasing cars for Tesla as a third-party lessor for customers that they didn't necessarily have great products for, because it was very cookie cutter, right? Here's a leasing structure. You either take it or you leave it, right? And there's no variability for people that are business owners. Maybe you need to accelerate depreciation. Maybe you want to change the residual because you're trying to maximize your write-off potential. Tesla doesn't do these types of things, right? They can't to satisfy their volume play, right? So with us, we can have more of a nuance kind of package for these types of for consumers, because ultimately fleet managers is who we work with as well. A lot, just about every one of them look at this as a full holistic viewpoint of a portfolio. So they really need someone to sit down with them, not just in the legacy way, but understands the vehicle technology, understands the servicing, understands the charging, the ownership model, and the finances behind it. And then how do we drill that down to a total cost per mile, right? So this is all the things that we've been working on the leasing and financing side. So leasing financing is where we started, and that's our core even today. After I left Tesla, yeah, back in, I think 2018, 2018, after a few months, I ended up joining up with KJ to expand on this type of principal thinking, right? And the principal thinking was, how can we make this slightly different, but to accommodate these types of customers and these types of vehicles? And one of the things that I was seeing is there's a ton of vehicles out there that are ending up in the independent market that were becoming used, right? And what we were seeing is it was almost overnight. It was a few hundred to almost a few thousand, and then now there's tens of thousands. But this was 4 years ago. And one of the things that I was seeing, I was talking to a bunch of dealers around the country and kind of picking everyone's brains a little bit. And they would buy a couple cars, a couple Teslas as an example, here and there, not really know how to sell them. They weren't very educated on the product. There was all these different nuances of the packages that were either being offered or that came with, that didn't come with it during this time. And they weren't able to wrap their heads around this. There was no guide for them to really understand and educate themselves on this. So they didn't really know how to sell this to the end customer, and the end customer also didn't know much about it. So they relied a lot on education. The Tesla model was all education, and the dealer model is not education. The dealer model is just sell you a car. So they're buying inventory that they couldn't really sell very well, and this was leading to reductions in value. This was leading to poor resale value. So I started thinking about like, okay, well, how do we increase value across the board, right? How do we help maintain the value? No one wants to buy a car that in 3 or 4 years is not worth anything, right? That's not ideal. Although we don't look at cars as investment, no one should be looking at cars as like investment opportunities. You still don't want to buy something that just totally loses all its money, right? And for most people, this is the second most expensive thing that they'll ever purchase in their life. First a home, second a car. So we started looking at it in different ways, and ultimately, what really drilled down in thinking of how do you build value, one of the things that we saw on the used vehicle side at Tesla was people did not want to buy a car that didn't have a warranty, especially a used vehicle. I mean, this was such new technology that although it may be more simplistic, it was different, and fear is derived from ignorance. So if you don't know much about the car and how it works, you're scared of everything about it. And you need some sort of value. You need some sort of peace of mind to know that I'm going to be okay for a few years. All right. So this, and even at Tesla, it was hard for us to sell a used car without a used vehicle warranty. And that's something that we had to drum up and create. So we created XCare, and XCare is now our flagship product because this has been booming out of control since we launched it about 4 years ago. But with XCare, it was, it really answers that problem to a lot of people. And for us, we knew that the dealer world might be able to capitalize on this. And we partnered with over a couple hundred dealers nationwide that sell XCare. But most importantly, we go direct to consumer. So consumers, people that bought their cars from Tesla, people that bought it used from different parties, they're the ones that are coming up to us and say, hey, I'm looking at a 5-year-old, 6-year-old Model S or 4 or 5-year-old Model X. I'm not going to buy this car unless I can have a warranty for it. So they reach out to us. So we're speaking to a surprising amount of people, and we're doing things differently here. That is different than the legacy world. The way to create a warranty product for EVs was not easy. It took us a full year to develop this, not just based on pricing and analytics, guessing what the risk factor is, but also recreating a claims process that works with Tesla service, but also Lucid and Rivian, all these direct to service models. Just a 3 days ago, Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, just announced that 65% of their dealers here in the United States have signed on to their EV program. which means that they're going to start doing kind of direct to consumer. So this is now becoming more of the trend in the EV world, the direct to consumer.
Mhm.
So we build everything that we do. All of our services, all of our products, leasing, financing, warranty, all of that is built for the direct to consumer process. We've been part of this now since day one. We've helped build the direct to consumer process, and now we're building it as a third party to complement that direct to consumer process. And that's exactly what XCare does. It does it on an ancillary product side, does it on a warranty side. So like things like who diagnoses your car? What's your labor rates? Where are you buying the parts from? We'll buy the parts from here. We'll send it to you to repair it because we can get this done cheaper. I don't believe you. What's wrong with that car? I'm going to send an inspector out there to go check it out. All of that old school negotiating, bartering, trying to drive the cost down on the repair, all that does is actually hurt the consumer. That doesn't help the consumer in any sort of way. So we totally eliminated all of that. We understand that a direct-to-consumer service model, especially in the Tesla world, is the best service is no service. Elon has said this. I truly believe that. And if you look at Lucid, Rivian, and Tesla, their entire business model, service model, is purely reliant on get these cars out as quickly as possible and hope that you never see them again. It's kind of like what a doctor's KPI should be, right? I need to make sure that you're healthy when you leave my office and make sure that you can never come see me again, right? So those are the two things. And we knew that. So we built a product around that type of understanding. We don't think their service models are going to shift because they make money on the new car side, right? They make money on the sale of these vehicles because they manufacture them. The business model is fundamentally different. So all of the tricks and schemes that you would see from these third-party service centers, which these legacy companies had to try to mitigate around, we don't have to deal with. So we totally reinvented it. We redesigned it from the ground up. We don't deal with the legacy people because it's clear that they can't necessarily be trusted. I mean, they've had to make all of these roundabout ways to not get, to drill down their cost. So for us, it was, well, let's not worry about any of this because the foundational principles of how their business works is not relying on that. So we knew that, and 4 years later, it's working tremendously well, and we were totally right on the mark.
Okay, so you've already mentioned XCare, and you are a co-creator of this product line. Could you please share with us what was the most challenging part for you as a co-creator?
So the most challenging part in everything that we do at Xcelerate, and this is just kind of across the board, is although we methodically look at trying to not just create things because they're different, but because they're better, right? We want to make sure the end result is always better. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can't work with legacy partners, right? So we still have to work with some amazing partners that we have, whether that is underwriters, servicers, administrators, to create these products, but also to service them, right? Especially with our leasing, like obviously with leasing and financing, we have lenders that we work with that are more traditional banks, and a lot of which many probably have heard of. So they're more institutional banks, but they're still traditional banks. But we knew that in order to really own the experience and make sure, and everything we do is experience walk back. What's the ideal customer? We're all EV owners ourselves. What's the ideal customer experience? What's the ideal product that we want to create? What would make sense for us? And then how do we create that for everybody? How do we walk back, right? So when working with these partners of ours, they're in this legacy world that they have been for decades now, and we have to convince them that this is entirely different and that we should never be thinking of this the same way. And the moment you think of it the same way is the moment you won't be successful with it. And with all of our partners. So it is incredibly time consuming because we have to change hearts and minds, but we do. And thankfully we're very, very, very great at it. So we almost never hear no anymore. And I always hear yes in almost every single time. But at the very beginning, this was very hard, right? I think now it's a little bit easier. I think most people see the writing on the wall that EVs are the future of the automotive industry. But 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, that was not the case at all, right? So being able to convince these individuals that this is absolutely going to be the future was also saying that your business in the way that you know it today is also going to fail. And no one really wants to hear that. right? So there is this fine line of convincing them what the future is going to look like, but not just what it's going to look like, but what we're going to create to accomplish that. And having their experience and all of their infrastructure and their tools to be able to run and help us build that future, right?
Mhm.
So we do work with a lot of partners, and we're very thankful for them, and they're very great. But that is the biggest trouble. The biggest trouble is getting them, is to push them forward consistently over and over and over again. But luckily, we're really good at that, and that's kind of our art.
What technologies do you use in Xcelerate?
So we have proprietary software just across the board. So we're cloud native. We are we're all on AWS for the most part, and we built our software and our website on Heroku. But it's all cloud native in structure for our front end to our back end. We have teams that are nationwide, right? So we have my VP of sales is in Chicago. My market lead is in Houston. Our business is based in North Dallas. I'm in Bay Area, California. So we're kind of all over the place. Our dev team is actually in Croatia. So we're all over the place. And so we needed to make sure that we built a ability to communicate across the globe with very little latency, that is quick and fast and easy, where it's something that everyone can see. And that was incredibly important, while also being incredibly safe. We do deal with a lot of sensitive information, private information. We do credit approvals and things like that. So safety is a big focus for us. So this was not necessarily, and I don't want to give too much away, but these are the things that we've had to build. Now, on top of that, getting down to the risk structure, being able to create analysis and pricing elasticity testing in order to understand what is the best price that we're selling. What's the consumer behavior look like? Who's capitalizing on this? Who's not purchasing? We don't want to just look at our pricing from a perspective of margin. I want to look at a pricing from a perspective of a consumer. So that itself requires a significant amount of focus and a lot of analytics. So there's a whole entire core technology, a suite of technology, or a core suite of technology in that particular area, just for analytics. And on the flip side, and on the other end, like I said, without giving too much away, we are looking at, and I'm currently looking at how different ways where we can use AI ML to benefit our businesses, right? Benefit our business, whether that is from a risk, from a claims management system, in order to automate the claims process. Is that a possibility? But we're bringing everything online, right? Making sure that we create a level of transparency from the consumer. So from the discovery all the way to the usage and all the way to the payout. When we pay for your service, all of that is going to be digitally connected. And that is, so we're working without, actually, I can't tell the names quite yet because there's something we're still in the process with. But we're even working on things with a partner, a very strategic fintech partner of ours, to be able to give all of our members that are XCare members of that warranty a payment card, an actual debit card. So instead of us trying to pay the service center through email or give them credit card, we just load up your card and then you use it. Very simple, fast, and it's something you actually can use and have in your own hand, right? Or digitally, a digital wallet or physical wallet, right? Or a physical card. So these are things that we're developing. We're always trying to look at what is the next best thing to enhance the experience. So instead of being technology first, we're experience first, right? I don't want to sit here and push a technology that doesn't actually benefit anybody. So, so we need to make sure what's better for the customer, and then what do we need to create in order to achieve that. And that's pretty much how we look at all of our what core technologies that we need in order to accomplish that customer experience.
Okay, you've mentioned that your dev team is in Croatia. So is it outsourcing model?
It is. For now it is. Yeah, for now it is. Well, it's most part it is. I'm also a pseudo developer. I'm not going to sit here and call myself a developer, but I do dabble and I do things on my own. I manage our CRM, which is what I do on our side. So which is a lot of what our team kind of works in. But yes, we do have a third party development studio that does things from product to user experience to engineering work, and to also just really really some forward-thinking stuff, right? So they're actually a great team that we work with. We work with Farshore. So highly recommend. I mean, like I said, we've had some great experiences with them thus far. So that's and we've worked with some other partners in the past as well. I think we, as a company, when you try to, we thankfully have been able to bootstrap our entire way through. So we've never taken outside capital investment. We've poured in and reinvested everything that we have. We believe that, building it this way is the leanest. We're building it lean, but we're doing it in the right way, right? We're 100%. We're always profitable every single time because we're good at managing. But we know that we're going to have to pour fuel on the fire. But to start, we needed to make sure, how do we spend less while getting the same amount of output, right? So everything is, we always look at ways to increase our efficiency while maintaining the same level of quality output, because we don't want to sacrifice our quality in any way.
Your experience in the industry give you the opportunity to foresee some technology trends, changes. Could you please share with us your personal predictions for the future of the industry?
It's incredibly difficult to overlook the sheer value of autopilot. Once we're able to accomplish autonomous driving, which in my mind, I consider myself as somewhat of a technologist in ways, but in my mind, that's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And that is, I think that is, we have to be ready for that. And that's going to change just about everything. How a normal person uses their vehicle and from a day-to-day basis is now entirely different. What does that ownership model look like when when your car is more of a tool for you rather than a resource for you to use, right? And that is, the value proposition is entirely different. How do people own cars? Do people even own cars, right? Anymore? Are your car, in kind of in Elon's mind, are your cars are revenue generators, right? Because obviously your car is parked more than it's in use all the time, right? For most people. So if that car is able to go generate money for you and create and be part of a rideshare program, then why wouldn't you do that? But also there's, it's sometimes, I could talk for hours about this, but there's a lot of different theories of how our world changes, right? How traffic changes, how much more efficient our society can occur. But I think from our perspective, the ownership model, what's the ownership model look like? And if the ownership model is different, then that means how people transact and purchase and what they need is also going to be different. So we have to really look at that. We are we're creating a lot of technology on the financial side. So making sure that everything is bespoke to electric vehicles, right? Where it's not just automotive, but EV specific. And that is different. That's fundamentally different, right? Like, how do you look at total cost per mileage calculation? Well, you're not looking at anywhere the same in your gasoline counterparts, because your equations are different, your efficiency calculations are different, your energy consumption is totally different. And then we're looking at ways to even expand past the car. We're looking at going into the full solution. And I think that's the way that it needs to be going. So we're looking at the battery storage side and the energy generation side to complement the vehicle. So how does that look like, right? So, but I think the core technology for the future of automotive and how our business is going to be restructured is just, I think the biggest thing is autonomous vehicle driving, right? Once we're at level 5, and this is what I tell everybody, once the steering wheel is considered an optional component to the vehicle, then I think the way that we've been looking at owning cars, driving them, using them is fundamentally different in that particular world than what we've known to be true today. And we've seen reminiscences of this. I think 5 years ago, we saw a 50% decrease of individuals getting driver's licenses from between the ages of 16 to 18 because of the rise of Uber, right? Transportation was a lot more accessible for individuals. So I think this takes it to a whole different ballgame.
Okay, so let's see what happens in the future. To sum up our conversation, I would like to answer you one of the most thought-provoking questions, I think. What advice would you give to the entrepreneurs who are only at the beginning of their journey?
At the beginning of every journey, you're always going to have more people to tell you that that idea doesn't make sense than it does, right? And this is where, as an entrepreneur, you need to be able to give yourself a little bit of confidence. And this might be a negative word to most, but in times like this, it's not. But a little bit of an ego. You need a kind of a little you need a little bit of an ego, because you need to ignore the noise around you in order to keep driving. But you have to be sure. You have to be absolutely confident in your idea. And that means the due diligence. It's not just an idea. And you have to execute on that idea. Execution is everything. I have a lot of mentees, and I tell people, just a very quick thought exercise. You have two people, person A, person B. Person A has 100% knowledge of the subject matter. That's arguably the best in the world. Person B has 25% of the knowledge of that particular subject matter, but is an amazing execution, or is able to execute very, very well on that particular of whatever they know, right? So person A doesn't do any action. He doesn't follow any action with his amazing ideas, but person B is able to do 50% more action than person A. Who's more successful? Person B. Doesn't matter how much you know. That's the person who actually did something. Ideas go nowhere if it's not followed through action. So it's one person, one thought, one idea, and one action, right? You got to follow through. So by being able to follow through, you do have to ignore the noise around you. You do have to be really confident and very sure in your idea. And you got to surround yourself with the best and the brightest people that also believe in the same thing. You have to hire people, and you have to surround yourself with people that are better than you. You cannot be the smartest person in the room. And if you are, you're in the wrong room. Period. You have to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. So it's all about grit and tenacity. That's what it is. I don't think anyone is special. I don't think anyone who's successful, it doesn't matter how many millions you have. It doesn't matter how many customers you have. It doesn't matter what amazing ideas you're able to execute. No one is special. This is a basic recipe for success. You create ideas and you execute on them, and you pursue action, and you create those ideas. And what's the result of those ideas? Are people buying into it? Yes or no? If they're not, then adjust, right? And you pivot, but you got to keep on going. You can't give up. We had 3 or 4 ideas that absolutely didn't work. And I'm not sitting here talking about those 3 or 4 ideas right now. I'm not talking about what didn't work. I'm talking about what absolutely does work, right? But we tried more things that didn't work than did, right? But we're not focusing on the things that didn't. You have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to keep on progressing forward at all costs. So ultimately, it comes down to one word: perseverance. Who has it more? You or the person next to you?
Thank you, Milad, for this conversation.
Thank you so much for the invite.